My name is Bailey Sachs, and my project is called The Year Without Summer and the Modern Prometheus. On April 10th, 1815, the world changed. A volcano erupted on the island of Sumbawa, Indonesia, the likes of which has never been seen before or since. Tambora is one of the 127 active volcanoes located in the 7,000-kilometer-long Indonesian volcanic belt, which is part of the Pacific Ring of Fire. That means that 13% of all active volcanoes worldwide are located in Indonesia. Tambora is the biggest eruption to have happened during human history. The eruption caused a combination of burning winds and tsunami floods that decimated most of the island and killed over 100,000 people on the island of Sumbawa alone. Today, where there was once a fully formed volcano, now is one of the largest post-glacial sinkholes on the planet. Because the scale of the eruption was so massive, the volcanic ash and sulfur dioxide reached into the stratosphere where it was chemically transformed into an aerosol layer of sulfuric acid, reducing solar radiation and cooling the surface below. Because Tambora is located near the equator, the meridional air currents spread this aerosol layer around the planet, causing disruptions to temperature and precipitation patterns on every continent. The effects can be seen in outbreaks of cholera in India, crop failures in China, famine in Ireland, and unusually cold weather in the US and flash floods in the Swiss Alps. 1816 became known as the Year Without Summer, or as some like to call it, Year 1800 and Frozen to Death. Global temperatures dropped on average between 1 and 10 degrees Celsius. Europe and the United States didn't experience a summer at all that year. It caused weather to be rainy, cold, dry, and led to crop failures and food shortages worldwide. At the time of the eruption in 1815, there was no adequate facility or responsible institutions in charge of the volcanoes in Indonesia. That means that at the time, there was no way to distribute information about the eruption out to people around the world, let alone in Indonesia. That is why learning from Tambora today is so important. The world could not understand many of the weather events that were happening in the years following 1815, and it took several decades before the correlation between the weather phenomena and Tambora's eruption were made. They examined the damage Tambora caused worldwide in a scientific manner, but they also looked to mass media from all over the world to see the extent of the damage and put it all together. The signs of eruption were first seen starting on April 5th. Rumbling could be heard for miles, and ash fell on the surrounding cities. This indicated the pre-initial phase. And then, on April 10th, it was evident that the summit had collapsed. Glowing rocks began falling from the summit, which indicated the strongest stage in pyroclastic flow. When the pyroclastic flow reached the coast, it caused a tsunami. The eruption continued until April 17th. The Tambora eruption was rated a 7 out of a possible 8 on the Volcanic Explosivity Index. The impact caused by the pyroclastic flow was devastating and caused the loss of houses, villages, cities, folklore, culture, and language, and more. In places the volcano didn't directly destroy, people still suffered indirectly from starvation and disease, and agriculture and governmental collapse. The population of Sumbawa was reduced by 50%. Outside of Indonesia, thousands of people died indirectly due to Tambora. In Ireland, due to typhus and food shortages. In China, thousands died due to starvation and the unusually cold summer. And in India, thousands of people died due to cholera brought on from the abrupt change in weather. The 1815 Tambora eruption is classified as the most catastrophic eruption in the world within human life history. Tambora altered climate change on a global scale, but the eruption also brought about creative ideas that changed the world. In 1816, Mary Godwin and Percy Shelley went to stay with Lord Byron on the shore of Lake Geneva. The year remains the coldest, wettest Geneva summer since the records began in 1753. There were 130 days of rain between April and September. This weather is what inspired Mary Shelley to write Frankenstein. In the gloomy June of 1816, unusual summer weather brought about the idea of a ghost story writing competition. During this time, Byron also wrote a poem titled Darkness that was said to express the day-to-day reality of millions of people across the northern hemisphere at the time. In a juxtaposition to Byron's poem, Keats wrote To Autumn in September of 1819, a poem that celebrates the fact that the previous 3 years of appalling weather and failed harvest had finally come to an end. But the most famous and impactful work of literature to come out of that summer in Geneva would be Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. In the preface of the 1818 edition of her novel, she states, "I passed the summer of 1816 in the environs of Geneva. The season was cold and rainy, and in the evenings we crowded around a blazing wood fire and occasionally amused ourselves with some German stories of ghosts, which happened to fall into our hands. These tales excited in us a playful desire of imitation. 2 other friends and myself agreed to write each a story, founded on some supernatural occurrence." The storm appears twice within Frankenstein, firstly as a boyhood memory. Then the second thunderstorm appears in the novel after Dr. Victor Frankenstein has created the monster. The most interesting thing about the second mention of the storm is that it is the first appearance of the monster. In the novel, lightning strikes and the monster is given life. You could say that the storm itself, in both the novel and the reality in which the novel was written, was responsible for the creature's existence. And then these are my sources. Thank you.